when we were working on you today, what we discovered is that you have what we call a category 2.
Okay.
And that was where we blocked you in that face-up position. Okay. Now then, in order to stabilize that, because the category 2 is basically a sprain strain of your sacroiliac ligament. Okay. All of those words basically mean that this area right back in here where your triangular sacrum bone joins onto your hip bone, there's a joint right there.
Okay.
And that joint has little bitty ligaments and attachments in there. And when it gets sprained or strained and starts to separate, what happens is you get a shearing effect. Okay. When you get that shearing effect, you get that inflammation that you feel back in this side. Sometimes it refers through to this part of your inguinal ligament or down here in your groin area. And because that ligament doesn't have a really good blood supply to it, what we're going to do is we're going to use this, which is called a trochanter belt, to be an artificial ligament to that joint.
Like a brace.
Like a brace.
For your sprained ankle.
Exactly. Until we can get that inflammation to settle back down.
Okay.
Okay. Now then, with sprained ankles, if you had a really badly sprained ankle, how long would it take for it to heal, do you think?
Maybe 8 weeks.
Maybe 8 weeks. Certainly 6 weeks. 6 to 8 to 10 to 12,
right.
depending
Usually
on
a little while.
A little while. So that's how I want you to consider this. Okay. This belt is your new best friend.
Okay.
Okay. And you're going to wear it for 6 to 8 weeks, most likely.
Okay.
Okay. Now then, after we get it stabilized and we start weaning you out of it, there's going to be times when you're still going to want to put it back on. Okay, like if you're mowing the yard or if you're up and down cleaning out cabinets. This is a situation that never really goes away, but it can be managed. Okay, this category 2, you don't find it on x-ray, you don't find it on a CAT scan. It's purely a diagnosis of different indicators that we use in sacro-occipital technique, which is that blocking technique, and then what we do with those indicators. And you know that when we blocked you face up, all of those sore spots that you had up here in your neck, all of this down in here on this side, down in your low back, that knee pain, all went away when we had you on the blocks. Okay?
Right.
So that's what we want, is we want to stabilize you in that position where all of that pain went away, so that then those ligaments can start shortening back up and healing. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how you're going to wear this. Okay. If you'll notice, this has a little seam right here in the back, and these have some Velcro attachments like this. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to start this out and just kind of shorten these up just a little bit, because here in a minute we're going to pull them a little tighter to use them for some extra stability. Okay, so we're going to line this seam on this belt up with the seam on your jeans, which is hopefully right over the seam in your butt.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we should be good.
We should be good. Okay, good. Okay, so I want you to hold your arms up just a little bit. We're going to find this by finding the top of your hip bones right here. There's the top of your hip bone. And generally, the proper place that we're going to put this is about 4 of your finger widths down from the top of your hip bone. So just find the top of your hip bone there with your fingers. Good. And then put 4 fingers kind of together right there. And probably your belt's going to lie right in here. This is the bottom part of your hip bone right here.
Okay.
Let me see over here a second. Let's go from here to here on you, okay? Because that's actually the front part, And we're going to set this belt just below there and just on top of this leg bone where it joins on, okay?
Okay.
So you can move your hand there for just a second. We're going to line this seam up, turn around here this way. We're lining this seam up with the seam in your jeans, and then turn back around again for me. Good. Okay, and, oops, look like we got it upside down, but it doesn't really make any difference. It's the same both directions. And then we're going to bring this piece over and fasten it like this. Okay. Now then, that's not quite where I want it because it's not quite low enough. This actually needs to go, in addition to be lined up with the seam on your jeans, it also needs to go across the biggest part of your pelvis. So right where you're the biggest is where we're going to have this sit. Okay, I'm going to let you go ahead and attach that and just fold that one piece over the other. Fix your Velcro there.
Now, how tight do you want the belt to be?
It shouldn't be so tight that it creates pain going down into your legs or that the top of your legs get numb, okay? But it needs to be tight enough to stay in this position. Okay. And whether that's you feel good with it really tight or whether you feel good with it a little bit looser, it's purely subjective at that point. Okay, I want you to take hold of these side pieces, and I want you to pull them forward. Once we get this set, you won't have to mess with these side pieces again. There you go.
Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
There you go. Now then, take that front part, and if you need to adjust it a little
again.
bit, tighten
Yeah,
it up
it's
a little bit.
looser.
Okay.
Okay.
So now then, one way you can check and make sure that you're not trapping your leg bones is just stick your finger right here at the bottom of your belt
Okay.
and take this foot on this side and just rotate your foot in and out. Good. And does that feel like that allows your leg to move?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we don't want it so far down that it's going to keep your leg from moving or make you feel like you're restricted here. But we do want it across the biggest part of your bottom side right there, okay? And just below your hip bones, about like that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what we've done is we've created that stability in there. In order not to cause this shearing effect back in this SI joint again, one of the things you need to be careful about is you don't want to stand with one foot cocked out like this, okay? Either one of them. Because what that does, even though it kind of feels good, it's you trying to stabilize that SI joint yourself. And now you have that belt on, so we don't want you to do that anymore. We don't want to load that up so that it's not balanced side to side. So what I suggest to people is, even though if you're a woman it doesn't look real ladylike, is just take a little broader stance on your feet, because that way it makes it a little bit harder for you to get into that position of cocking
Feels a
one
lot
foot
more
up.
stable.
And it
too.
feels a lot more stable, exactly. Anybody that's ever ridden a horse probably has one of these underneath it all. I have one, okay? And I don't wear my belt all the time, but I do wear it when I ride. I wear it when I'm doing any heavy lifting, and I've had this situation for about 20 years. But the benefit that I get out of this when I do have to go put it on far outweighs whatever price I feel like I'm paying by having to have something around
It's
me.
a preventative
It's a
measure at that
preventative
point.
measure. Besides being just supportive, it's also preventative, so that I don't end up going into a crisis situation and spending a lot of time in it. I can just use it when I need it now that I'm stabilized, and then I don't have to wear it for other activities at this point.
Very good.
All right. So now then, turn around here for a second, because one of the things that I'm going to want you to do tonight is I want you to take an ice pack. Do you have an ice pack at home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this is the side that we found that lesion on, with that separation of your sacroiliac joint.
Okay.
So what I want you to do is I want you to take a paper towel,
Mm-hmm.
okay? I want you to put your ice pack on the paper towel, with the paper towel right next to your skin. So the
Okay.
only thing that's going to separate that ice pack from your skin is one layer of paper towel.
Okay.
Okay, and then you're going to just kind of wedge it down in this area, right over this SI joint,
Where
right
it
here,
usually hurts.
where it usually hurts at, correct. And then you can actually wear the belt and just walk around with it. You
Okay.
need to do that 20 minutes out of every hour that you have time for, several times a day, particularly for the next 4 or 5 days, because as this inflammation goes out, that's going to help shut the circulation down, take out that inflammation, make it more stable faster.
Okay.
Okay, and when you sit, also there's some instructions for that.
Okay.
If you sit on a couch, move over here for just a second, let me show you. If you sit on a couch or anything, be really careful of what kind of couch you sit on, okay, because if it's very soft, you're not going to get that support no matter how you sit. I'm
Okay.
sure in the past, one of the things that's felt really good to you is you might sit down in a chair and pull a leg
That's
all
right.
the way
Yep.
up there, right? Okay. Again, that's kind of like going from side to side with your foot and shifting your weight back and forth and sticking a foot out there, because what this does is it kind of locks that in and it stabilizes that SI joint. But it doesn't really fix it. You're just actually aggravating it more. Okay, so don't do this. Don't put your leg underneath you. Actually, don't cross your leg like guys do and sit like this, because that action of opening up your knees actually spreads that joint in the back. Okay?
Okay.
So if you're going to sit on something and you want to cross your legs, find something with a low stool and put it out front. Cross your legs at your ankles.
Okay.
Okay. So, and since we're talking about sitting, and you're a girl, and guys who do this, when you go to the bathroom and when you're sitting on the toilet, make sure that this is right next to your skin. Okay?
Okay.
Toilet seats don't have a lot of support to them for a very good reason. They're in the middle. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that that belt's on when you actually sit down, so that those sacroiliac joints don't spread.
Okay.
Okay? And Probably you'll be able to wear that right next to your skin most of the time, and then you can put your clothes over it if you have just a little bit extra room. People are normally surprised by the fact that it really doesn't take up that much extra underneath your clothes. And if you have it in the right position, generally speaking, nobody's even going to know that you have it on underneath dress clothes or jeans or anything like that. And you'll get pretty used to it fairly quickly.
Very good.
So, do you have any questions?
What about sleeping and showering?
Okay. You may take it off to shower. Okay. But you get in the shower, you take your shower, and immediately when you get back out and get dried off, being careful not to open up your legs too much or to do that in the initial stages, then you put it right back on. Okay. When you're asleep, until I tell you otherwise, I want you to wear it in bed if it will stay in place. Okay. Sometimes they have a tendency when you lay down to want to ride up around your waist. And if that's the case and you can't keep it in place, then you can lay down in your bed, take it off. Okay. What position do you sleep in?
Usually on my side.
Okay, if you're a side sleeper, it's really important that you put a pillow between your knees. Okay, because when you put that pillow between your knees, that's actually going to lift this hip back up. Because again, we don't want you laying all night long with your leg crossed over the other.
That makes sense.
Okay, so we want to be keeping that really stable. If you're a back sleeper, though, same thing, put a pillow underneath your knees, which actually takes a lot of stress off your pelvis and your low back. Okay, and any other questions?
Nope, I think we've covered it.
Okay, great. Well, if you have any questions, call the office. Everybody pretty much knows about Trochanter belts and Category 2s, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. But we will say that if anything bothers you, certainly it may just mean that the next step has come up, because there is going to come a time in the next week or so when you're going to adjust it, you're going to try to tighten it, you're going to loosen it, and no matter what you do, when you take it off, you just go, I just don't want to put this thing back on again. Okay. What that means is that the next phase or the next step has come up, and so you just need to call the office and we'll work you in. Just tell them, you know, Dr. Kathy put a belt on me the last time I was here. She said when it got uncomfortable to call her. So I'm calling today, and we'll work you in probably that day, because it just means we need to adjust something, maybe put those blocks underneath you, put your belt back on. And then generally after that part, then it's just a matter of checking it periodically and letting that joint in the back, that's the SI joint, start stabilizing and getting that inflammation out.